Welcome to the CoachSpeak podcast, built for coaches, by coaches, hosted by Jamie Bolton and Dustin Martin, sponsored by Ray Crowther, providing athletic training equipment since 1932, helping you dominate with fundamentals.
Hey guys, welcome back to CoachSpeak. Dustin Martin here with Jamie Bolton, special friend tonight, guy who's going to be a groomsman in my wedding, who I've learned a lot of football with, Mr. Spencer Carroll. He's put me on quite a few things, whether it's R4 with Dub Maddox or Ripley's match with Dante Barty, but a guy I look up to a lot in the coaching profession. And before we get going, I want to thank our sponsor, Team Builder, #1 software for strength conditioning coaches.
Hey guys, we're excited today. Our topics today, really we're kind of going off the script a little bit. We're going to be doing controversial topics in high school football. So we're just going to go down a list of things that we come up with and really get in, kind of debate these things specifically. There's some things we will probably agree on, some things we won't. So it should be an exciting time. Before we get started, just talking about Spencer, man, he was our quarterback coach when I was offense coordinator at York. And then he transitioned to defense and really helped those guys out on defense. So he's a guy that knows both sides of the ball really well. He's out at Union High School in Oklahoma. We're glad to have him on, man. It's glad to have you, Spencer.
Honored to be here, fellas. I'm glad y'all picked me for the controversial topic episode.
Sure, man.
I think you're a good fit for it, man. You got a good perspective.
How many Scotty Cameron covers do you have in your background?
I think I'm at around 60.
You know the exact number.
Oh, he does. He does.
I got one in the mail right now. It'll be 62.
Every time I go in his room, I'd try to snag one. That dude would know immediately.
What's the handicap now?
1.8.
Dang, dude. Crushing it.
That's on 9 holes.
Hey, man. I'll just go out there and try to make contact. Solid contact. All right, man. So first thing, what's one thing you would change about high school football overnight if we could change anything?
From a serious answer, I would probably say, and this is the defensive side coming out of me, would be the substitution rule. Having the ability to match personnel, Now I know the logistics behind that probably aren't, what makes it hard at the high school level. But it would be nice to be able to match personnel, like they're able to do in college and high school. On an unserious note, maybe like mandatory or mandated coaching supplements.
Oh, yeah.
State to state, pay the coaches more. But that'd be what
you, Dustin?
Right. Would probably be the substitution rule, or maybe the hashes.
Yeah. The hashes are like...
Go college hashes.
Yeah, I think college has a good medium. It's too tight. It's too tight to one side. It's probably harder on defenses, honestly. It's a whole lot of field to cover with like half your team. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think
that's kind of what
standpoint. You are limited. Like you go empty. You don't really have a lot of space into the boundary. Or there's certain concepts, certain stuff that you can, I think, work a little bit better.
Even 2x2, like even 2x2 is tight over there. I mean, the slot is 2 yards from the tackle. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what I was going to say. I was going to say just kind of field dimensions, in terms of the hashes. I think it would make it tougher on defense, obviously, because right now in high school, probably 80% of offenses can't throw the field shot anything over 10 yards to the field. So really, you're cutting that whole hash the sideline to the field out. So it's kind of easier on high school defenses. So you widen it. Now they have to cover more space. It opens up more for offense. And, I mean, it would suck for defenses the way offenses are already going these days. But that would be the one thing I'd change.
See, I would change the same. I don't even know what I would change. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of rules coming down the pike about, transfer stuff. That stuff is here, man. Like, I kind of wanted to go back to like 2003. Like that's what I would like to change about football. I think there's a lot of I don't know, maybe that's just a nostalgicness, and maybe I'm an old guy now. But yeah, I just think the new stuff, it seems like it's less pure in a lot of ways. With the mindsets of, parents and kids and stakeholders and all that stuff is providing a lot of opportunity for young people. And I think people are excited about that. But for me, I just I like the time where we were players. And I know even then the older guys were like, hey, this new generation is not great. But I just, there's something about the reason I got into coaching. It seems like it's a bit further away from the original game that I remember playing and watching even as a young kid, going to District 3 and watching that packed house at District 3, and you got Rock Hill, Northwestern, and they're battling it out in front of 10,000 people, it seemed like. So that's kind of what I miss about the game a little bit. I think it's getting away from the community aspect and more about the individual, which again, there's a lot of positives to that, but obviously there's negatives to go with that too. So, but I know we probably can't go back. That's a pipe dream. So, but yeah, that's one thing I would definitely change.
Yeah, I mean, one thing it almost makes our job, I don't want to say necessarily harder, but it's like one more thing to balance. It's one more thing to get good at. And our job's already hard enough. Trying to help develop young men, trying to teach them the game of football, trying to win games. That is a part of our job. But
now you got to worry about them rolling out the next day.
Yep.
Yeah, or even the skills that weren't even, you didn't even know it were going to exist back then. So take 2003 for example. There's no smartphones. There's no social media. There's none of that. So now you have to have a whole skill set just to manage that as a football coach, or even delegate that task to brand your team. And we've talked about that a lot. I mean, now it's just totally different. I mean, it's just it's a different sport almost, in my opinion.
No doubt.
All right, got another good one here. What's one coaching hill you're willing to die on no matter what? I already got mine in my head. I know what I got.
Go first.
Go first, Dustin.
So one coaching hill I'll die on, defensive perspective. If the only thing you do is cover space, you're going to get gashed. If you don't have any other way to play coverage on defense, you'll get gashed. If you're spot drop only, you're going to get gashed, because if you cover space and not people, the way that routes are ran, the way routes are snapped, the way kids find the open area, you're done. Spot drop coverage will get you gashed. You better have some kind of pattern match or something in, even if it's traditional, just odd palms. I mean, it at least gives you a little bit of a chance. But if you're just playing spot drop coverage, and there's nothing wrong with spot drop coverage. I mean, you can mix it in, have different ways, but if that's all you're doing and a team can throw the ball, you're done.
Yeah, it's definitely, with the advancement of offenses, I think, you think about the air raid. Well, that's built for that. The air raid is built for spot drop. I mean, you're literally finding the grass, right? So when you start throwing those concepts, I remember, coaching against Coach Carroll, and you guys, you start running pattern match in the spring, and we're trying to throw stick, or we're trying to throw slash, or you can't complete stuff. It's just, there's just no space, but if you get spot drop guys, then yeah, I mean, obviously it's a lot easier. And then mixing that in, would you say man is a good mix, or if it's are you really specifically talking about zone matches?
I think it depends. I think if you're spot dropping, just mixing in man, the first thing I would ask you is what leverages are you playing in man? Because I mean, if you're playing hard inside leverage man in the slot, good luck on fade out. I mean, good luck on deep outbreaking, anything outbreaking inside leverage. Know where your help is. So I don't think that can help. But yeah, I guess the biggest thing is, the reason I say you have to match patterns is because it forces the quarterback to throw a perfect ball every time. Right. And if there's any slight imperfection, it's a pick or an incompletion. And so really it's a 15% chance if he don't throw a perfect ball.
Yeah, I think another point, Jamie, building on what you said, not only have offenses changed, but I feel like high school quarterbacks are probably better.
Oh yeah.
Just because they're exposed to training and development at an early age. I feel like coaches are probably, quarterback coaches are more in depth. They're able to just, as information trickles down from the top, which there's a lot more information flow now. You get into really high competitive levels of high school football. There's going to be quarterbacks that can make really good throws. And if you're just covering grass, if you're covering space, like Saban said, that shit don't work when Dan Marino's throwing the ball. At some point, we got to play deny the ball defense. We got to get tighter proximity on the receivers, or else, you play a kid like the kid we had last year at Union, one of the best high school quarterbacks, probably the most talented high school quarterback I've ever seen. Teams couldn't just drop back and look at him. I mean, just the way he was able to move them, the way he was able to control them, the way he could throw the ball, like, you just don't have a chance. I think at some point you gotta. That's probably the coaching hill I would die on. Is the whole idea of keep it simple, stupid. Having a small toolbox. I know we talked about that earlier, but like, I think that when it comes to the scheme or your philosophy of running an offense or running a defense, like, you got to have answers to different things in football. I mean, and like, at the end of the day, like, asking a kid to do something, like, you can play one complex coverage very, very well, or you can try to play a lot of complex coverages and, have no clue how to, troubleshoot those. I think it all comes down to how you teach what you do, but I will always err on the side of, I would rather have more answers than needed than not having enough answers. All right.
And that's kind of what we talked about, with defense. It's like, here's what we're trying to do. Here's our weaknesses. What are our adjustments if they attack those weaknesses, And then I remember talking with Bolton when he was helping out with the defense at Cannon when he was there, and he made adjustments that fit his personnel, but he knew that we're going to lose some disguise with this, like, from 2x2 to trips, like when we play, Mabel and whatnot, we're going to lose some disguise and ability to do things because we're not weak rotating, like we're technically strong rotating. But like, he knew that, and guess what? It didn't matter because they were going to get really good at what they do and keep their backers in the box and not make them play.
Yeah, Mabel looked like one too. So the disguise I was willing to go was like, is it man or is it zone match? And so, and like what you were saying too, like with the leverage didn't change either. And I think that's something that's, I was, having to kind of, delineate. But going back to talking about like offenses and how I think I wonder this, and you guys may know, you might have more insight on this, Spencer, but like it almost makes more sense at the high school level to run more zone match or man match than spot drop, because I would say that athletes have to cover the same space on the field that like NFL guys do, but the NFL guys are so much faster. So you can almost spot drop and be a little bit better off. Now, I know everything's relative, like with the quarterback velocity and
Right.
receivers and all that, but it would almost make a little more sense. It's like watching an NBA game. Like, those guys are taking 4 steps and they're going down the court versus a high school team. It just looks a lot different. So I wonder if there's like a difference in, I was talking to a college coach and he says he doesn't run any pattern match stuff. He just runs all spot drop. And I'm like, well, kind of makes sense with all the transfers coming in. Can you really have time to teach it? But I was just wondering, like, is that the case or not really? I mean, that's just something that popped in my mind.
I think, well, my opinion is I love coaching and teaching, eliminating what they can do. So, for example, and I've hit on this earlier in the show, but it's like when I talk with OL, there's 3 things a DL can do, man: outside, through you, or inside. Okay, there's 3 things a receiver can do: in, up, or out. So basically, when you're playing spot drop coverage, in my opinion, you're open to everything they can do. They can run any route on you because you're just dropping to a spot. When you play match or any kind of pattern match, you're playing a specific leverage, which, they call position maintenance. And in my opinion, you're eliminating these things. You're not going to run this against me. So if you're playing one high match, you're playing outside leverage. You're not going to run any under and outside breaking route. You're not going to run any under and inside because I have a backer for help. You're not going to run any over and inside like a post because we have middle of the field. The only route you have is the corner route. But if you play your leverage and your trail and you turn with it, it's got to be a perfect ball to even have a chance. So I think that's what I think in high school. If you play match coverage, you're eliminating the possibilities. What are we going to see? You're going to see a corner ball. So we're going to get really good at covering that, or we're going to put a smash call in that helps you. And I think that's the difference between the two.
Yeah, I think where people probably get in trouble is I learned very early on in my coaching football career that there's no absolutes in football. I don't think you can wholesale out to anything. I think guys that play only man match or only man to man, or they only play zone match. Like, I just think you just create problems for yourself. Like, there's times in a game where I won't spot drop. You probably get more interceptions, when guys are looking at the quarterback. Like, I expect the ball to be picked off when we have 7 guys looking at the quarterback. I don't expect there to be a lot of interceptions in cover 1. Now, there shouldn't be a lot of completions. We should be able to deny the ball. We should be able to play the receiver. But, like 3rd and long, being able to cut the front up, play Tampa, play your cover 3 stuff with maybe like a bonus dropper, low red zone where, you kind of, there's not as much space vertically. I think spot drop's a tool that you can have. You just can't, I don't think you can go into coordinating an offense or defense. It'd be like going into an offense saying, hey, we're only running zone.
Right.
We're only running inside zone. We're only running outside zone. Like, well, there's going to be times where I want gap. There's going to be times where I want power. There's going to be times where I want counter. I just think it's where you got to peel back the layers is how do these things work together?
Yes.
What can my coaches handle? What can my players handle? And how am I putting these pieces together, week in and week out over the course of a season, to play good defense or to play good offense?
I remember coaches always saying, man, we can't. I remember one coach, I can't remember who it was. He said, man, I've never heard of a guy doing both gap and zone. And I think that was years ago. Now, I don't think that's said very much. I think guys are starting to figure out how to do both. We certainly have. And that's because, like, what you're saying is you try to find the commonalities between the two, and you try to teach that to your players that way. So, like, if your combo steps can be the same, then that's two. You don't really have to teach 2 different types of combinations, right? That's and then if your terminology is the same, if you can kind of match that up, and then you can, like you say, peel back the layers and teach the nuance of the scheme, and then rep that over and over. I think, and like you're saying too, like less isn't always more, right? Like if you can somehow steal a couple things that marry up to what you already have, then you have answers when you need them down the road. And that's something too that just popped to my mind. And this may be another question if you guys are ready to move on, but like install stuff, like are we installing a lot early, or are we making sure that we're perfect before we move on to the next thing? Because that's something that everybody probably has in their mind, like how much is enough to install, like let's say in the spring, and then do you throw everything at them, or you kind of slowly build it in? What are your all's thoughts on that?
Go. You want to go, Spence? Go ahead.
I think, I think at the end of the day, like you got to decide what you want to be, and I think you got to get a good, you got to get a good foundation. Like you don't want to start doing too much too soon, because just kind of goes back to like you can do, like what I was saying earlier, you can do a bunch of stuff and not do it very well, or you can find a handful of things, get really, really, really good at it, and then see how, what are things that we can do that are similar to this that don't break a lot of rules or ask guys to do things that they don't normally do. It's just all about finding that balance. And I know that's cliche, but
yeah. But I get what you're saying. For me, it depends on what side of the ball and what position. So, for example, we can on defense, we can play 1 or 2 coverages, but still do a lot of things within the box to achieve what we want to achieve. And vice versa. We can be simple in the box and run a lot of different things on the back end that give us a better look. So like in our 2-high stuff, if we're playing some kind of 7 to the field and some kind of bracket or man to the boundary, well, there's a lot of different ways we can mix that in. Like we can play 7 to the field and play 0 on the back and blitz the corner, or blitz the weak safety, or blitz the backer. Like there's a lot of different things we can do that looks like a lot, but really it's not. Offense for me, I think based on kind of what I've seen, I like mastering before moving on. And I like assessing every day. Where were we after the practice? And then that dictates what's the next day look like, in my opinion, like every single day, especially up front with the big boys. You know, like if we're struggling with zone steps, man, we ain't moving the gap yet. Like let's master this. But like I said, it's all situational, per side, per position group, and your goals of what you're doing in your early install.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm kind of going down that rabbit hole a lot. And what we try to do is like package it with like families. So like smash family, for instance, like you got your quick smash, then you have slash, then you have like snag. And then all of those also have like vertical switch on the backside, some kind of vertical switch-ish type thing on the backside. And so we can put in those 3 concepts with like 3 different backside deals on the backside, but really it's all the same type of a read. So it kind of gives us some answers versus different things, or gives a different look. Is it a boundary? Is it a field, progression? And so that's what we've tried to do. And so when we go through the install, okay, we're running all the smash stuff today. And then the next day we're running all the skiff beater stuff. So you got like stick and curl, maybe it's double slant that day, and that way the quarterback has a similar drop, similar progression. His eyes are kind of in the same spot. And then I think they kind of go through there instead of like kind of breaking that up and saying, I mean, we're only going to get good at quick smash right now. And then until we get good at quick smash, we're not going to move on to like slash, what I mean? Like the boundary stuff, which is, for me, it's like, it's kind of the same thing. So, that's kind of where we're at with it. But yeah, I definitely don't want to put too much where they're not having success. I think you kind of go up to that point and then like, okay, they're really not getting that. Let's just back off of that one and keep calling stuff that gives them some confidence. And I think we saw that this year in our spring, especially up front. I think we spent like 3 or 4 days on zone, and then we went into gap. It's probably a little too soon with our guys up front. But I think too, it also gives you the opportunity to put into context what zone is and gap. Like, you know what I mean? Like for me, it's like, okay, we want to at least introduce this concept. Like we're doing zone. Let's throw gap in to give zone a little bit more context. Like, how in zone we're pushing vertically, but here, in gap scheme, we want to kind of get more of a wall built. So I think those things are important as a teaching tool, not necessarily having to be mastered to go through that. But it's like you said, it's year to year and day by day. But
also, how long have you been at the school? You know what I mean? Like how many times have you been doing this install or a similar install? It's like my first year defensive install to second year defensive install at Cannon was completely different. We actually trimmed back, but we achieved more, so the first 4 days, I strategically said, we're still going to do 2x2 and 3x1, but we're only going to fit zone run schemes. And then day 2, we're going to fit gap run schemes. Day 3, we'll start inserting H-back or 20 personnel, zone schemes only. Day 4, H-back, gap schemes. So it was like, and I found out that we were doing less, but we were just picking up on it so much more. And by week 2, it was mixing everything in, and they got a grasp on it. So that was good. That was a good topic. I enjoyed that one. All right. Next couple coming up will be a little bit easier and less in depth, but I had a coaching buddy the other day. I'm not going to say his name, but he texted me and he goes, "Hey man, what's your opinion on the sled?" He said, "We have a coach, that just wants to just hit the sled with no rhyme or reason." So the question is, if you can or cannot, would you choose to buy a 5-man sled or not? And is it beneficial if you don't have a reason behind using it?
Unlimited resources, yes, sure. Let's get all the toys we can. If I'm having to decide between a 5-man sled and maybe spending money on something that can directly help more players, then I think I'm going to do that. Because at the end of the day, and one thing about coaching tight ends this year that I'm absolutely loving, and it's just opened up a completely different world to me. I think the closer to the football that you get, the harder it is to coach. And I'm talking about offensive line and defensive line. I think those are probably two of the most good offensive line and good defensive line coaches are like the most underrated people on a staff. And it's because it happens so fast. All right. Those people are, people are so big and strong, and there is you can get so technical with how you coach that stuff. And yes, sure, we can play cover 1 10 different ways. All right. But that is nowhere near as impressive as splitting a double team or reaching somebody that is, bigger, stronger, and faster than you. But it's hell, I got fired up. Out of topic. The sled, I just think like, sleds are good for when you want to slow it down, when you want to introduce something, when you want to build confidence with kids, then I think sleds and shields and that stuff can help. But like at the end of the day, there's no better blocking drill. There's no better blocking practice than blocking another human being. All right. Because that person's going to feel like it, that sled's not going to feel like a person. That sled's not going to react like a person. That sled's not going to be what you're blocking in a game. So it's like, I think you can build confidence. I think you can really isolate movements, and, that's more of like a block practice approach. We could get into the block versus, varied practice. There's times for that, but I think when it comes to defensive linemen and offensive linemen and people that are going to be blocking, you need to block other people. You got to suck it up. I had a talk with my guys in Indy before our first practice, and I was like, look, guys, during Indy, there should be grunting. There should be pads hitting. All right. We are servicing each other. We have to give each other the best look. All right. We got to put any selfishness, any discomfort, any of that's got to go out the window, or we're just going to be wasting our time in Indy. Like, if you're not reacting like a defensive end, then the only time we're going to get to block a defensive end is in a live, scenario. And that's not how you get better.
Yeah. Well, I think, dude, this is such a great time for this, and you got them on your shirt. It's a perfect time to shout out to our sponsor, Ray Crother. It was not planned that Spencer was wearing his Ray Crother shirt. I will say that. But, Spencer made a good point, and he said that it's so hard to replicate blocking a human without doing it. And I think Ray Crother's onto something with their X-ray sled. It's an angle blocking sled, the only sled on the market that simulates, blocking a human is never going to be simulated unless you're doing it. But this sled, I think, is the closest thing. It's something I'm interested in getting because, man, just the way that you can work the body positioning and attack the sled, and it's on an angle like a double team. Hans is on to something over there at Ray Crother, and shout out to him.
Yeah, and going back to just talking about sleds, I think there is a purpose. It's like, for me, one thing that popped in my mind with what you're saying is it's like target practice, right? It's like if you're training, to be a sniper, right? You're not really training on humans. They look like them, right? But you can't add all the variables in. So if you want to strip all the variables away, and you really want to get technical with hand placement, foot placement, even from like a defensive perspective, a 2.4-point extension, I think those things are really good tools in the toolbox to have. And I remember when I was at Cannon, we bought I think we bought like, I don't know, a bunch of sleds and stuff from Ray Crother, and they hooked us up. But like, that's what I wanted at Cannon at that time, because I knew that we needed the target practice, and then we can kind of progress on. But that's kind of how I see and how to implement those things, and especially early in the spring where you can't have, body to body contact, or in the summer you can't have body to body contact. You can develop with that, although it's not like the real thing. And then hopefully by the time you get pads on, at least the technical details, without all the external variables affecting that, at least they have a background. And so that's why I like it.
I hate sleds.
You can't always tackle other people.
Yeah. Right.
You have to hit a sled sometimes.
Yep. I hate sleds for those people who use them punitive and who are like, drive this sled until I blow my whistle. Oh, well, hey, dude, 17 seconds later, they're about dead. They're about to fall out, and no one's getting any better. So for me, when do you use a sled? When you're teaching stance to engagement. You're teaching stance to engagement to that initial movement, and then also stance engagement movement 3 to 4 yards. Like, I think you have to do it the right way. And if you're solely just trying to get them better at moving people, you need to get in the weight room, because that's where that comes from. You are learning how to be explosive and powerful. Put them on a prowler sled, like that's where it is. So in my opinion, football practice is based off of technique and scheme. So if we're trying to hit the sled to get better at moving people, I don't see a lot of validity in that. Like, you can work on your technique that will put you in a better position to move people, but that's weight room, in my opinion.
Okay, let's move on, man. Let's move. So talking about like offensive line, and I know we got into this last time. I'm an expert at playing offensive line, obviously. So no, I'm just kidding. But are we 2-point or 3-point stance on the OL?
I had no experience with the offensive line either until these past 2 off seasons. I've spent a lot of time studying, and it hasn't even been general offensive line play. It's been seeing how long I can stay up and scroll through Jim McNally's Twitter. And somebody, as as
caps
off the wall as it comes across sometimes, I think a lot of people would say that he's one of the better offensive line coaches. You know, the dude coached like 50 or 60 years. You know, you don't do that when you're bad. I think he's got a great reputation in the NFL. But I think the name of the game is how fast you can get your hands on guys. All right. How fast can I get locked out on a guy? And I think that if I was in charge of the offensive line, all 4 of my guys would be in a 2-point stance, other than center. And
put him
that
in a 2-point stance
straight
too.
from Coach McNally. He said if he was in the NFL, and he might not be right, but I just think that it just allows you to get in a really good leverage position. We can get our hands on guys faster. And I think that would be the way to go.
Well, I think, in my opinion, to kind of add on what you're saying, I think if I had the true choice, I would do all in a 2-point stance. And here's why. When you look at the worst things that can happen, okay, we're in a 3-point stance and we can't get out of our stance to pass set, sack, huge negative play behind the sticks. Okay, worst thing that can happen in a 2-point stance on a run block, we get stalemated. You're not going to get beat across your face because you're already up seeing where he's at, where he's going, in my opinion. I think there are less bad things that can happen out of that than there are in a 3-point stance. Is kind of how I look at it. What's the worst case scenarios out of the stance? But at minimum, tackles 2-point, guards 3-point is what I would do.
And I think there's times where you want, obviously goal line, short yardage, you want to get them down. And once again, there's no absolutes in football. There might be a kid that can, plays much better out of a 3-point stance. I think you need to.
That's where I'm at with it. But it would just look awkward if like you had one, like your left guard's the only guy in a 3-point or a 2-point
left
stance.
Guard, right tackles in a 3-point.
So I think from like an aesthetic, it's like, dude, what are they doing?
So, Chad Greer at PD.
The first time somebody went empty, they were probably like, well, that's weird.
Oop-de-oop, man. Varsity Blues.
There's 3 guys there. There's 2 guys there. We got 8 guys in the box. Like, that's, like maybe people, care about that.
Well, I'll say this. If we have a condensed set, and we are our slot receivers like at a wing, he's not in a H-back stance. Like he's in his receiver stance. Like I'm not changing him to like
put the H-back in a 3-point.
Yeah, it's like, or we play, fullback stuff. But yeah, I don't know, man. I think I guess it comes down to like if you had to play devil's advocate, people listening are probably saying, well, what's more important, hand speed or is it leverage? And I think that would be the other thing. I would think that coaching that you would really have to. It's like coaching receivers. It's like receivers aren't in a 3-point stance, although their get offs would probably be better if they're in a track stance, right? But they want to be able to see. They want to be able to move laterally as well. And I think too, if you're in a 2-point stance on the offensive line, it allows you to move laterally. You can skip pull probably a lot easier. You can rip pull probably a lot easier. Pass set's a lot easier. It's not just a linear. It would almost make more sense for receivers to be in a 3-point stance, although that would be silly. Although they used to do that, but the reason I think,
dude, if you come out and them empty and all 5 are in 3-point stance, I would be like, dude, like timeout, take a picture of this, timeout.
Yeah, it's just, but that would, but again, I'm not putting my receivers in 3-point stances, but I'm saying the hard part about teaching a 2-point stance with receivers is obviously the stance itself. So I would imagine a 2-point stance at OL would he's probably get too high a lot because her hand's not in the dirt. So that would probably be a pain point to try to work through.
I'm pretty sure, like to add to Spencer, there's no absolutes. Like I'm pretty sure Chad Greer at PD, he had different cadences for, all right, we're going to just line up in 2-point stance and run the play. Or, hey, we're going to line up in 2-point. Quarterback's going to go ready, and everybody gets in a 3-point and then go out. And then they had sometimes they just line up in a 3-point. I'm pretty sure when we were scouting them, when we played them.
That's cool.
I think Chad Greer at PD does that on offense, but it was because I always tried to figure out what they were doing. Like it was like sometimes they would just line up to every O lineman's in a 2-point stance and they'd fire off. Sometimes they'd be 2-point, they were ready, set, and then they all go down to 3-point. And I mean,
you see like the triple option teams, they only go forward. Well, it makes a lot of sense to roll into your stance and kind of cheat it, and then they're in 4-point. Like there's no reason not to be. They're trying to go low and drive like. But if you're in an offense that requires a lot of different movements from your offensive line, then it makes sense to be 2-point.
Sure. Well, kind of on the same topic, let's flip the sides of the ball. Spencer, I want to hear your opinion on this. As a base, defensive end in a 4-2-5, standing up or in a 3-point stance as a base, and then when would you give them the freedom to kind of choose what they want to do?
As a base, I would teach hand down. I just think you can play blocks in a much, just a much better position, like a heavy 5 technique. All right, I think he's always going to be able to play a down block a lot better, from a 3-point stance and a 2-point stance.
Is that like a leverage thing to you then? Is that more leverage? Because like
I think, yeah. I just don't think you can strike somebody. That's another thing I talk about all the time now is I'm into striking people. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just a leverage thing. It's just the angle that you can kind of deliver the force. You can get underneath that guy's pads and deflect that force. I just think it allows us to deflect force easier. As a base, I think you could probably play into a block. You can play off the ball a little bit faster.
Because the goal is different from an offensive lineman and what you're trying to do, which is kind of like why we would prefer a 2 over a 3 on defense.
Yeah, if you lunge out as an offensive lineman, that guy's going to swim you and he's going to be in the back. So you have to be a little bit more controlled, I would imagine, from a striking standpoint.
Yeah, I know the way I would do it is, one, it was off a kid's comfortability. Like, what do you feel most comfortable in? And then, like, we had a kid who, closer to passing downs, he's like, Coach, I want to get in a 3-point. I just feel like I get a better get off. And then when we would see H-back and 20 personnel fits, they all loved to stand up because they could see an indicator fit a lot better. That's kind of what we did.
I've seen the 4-point too, obviously, with the speed rushers. I mean, the track stance has been fairly popular. But again, you had to be a pretty good athlete to probably try to get down there. But that's probably specific to like the down and distance. Hey man, this is a freaking jet technique. Like, let's freaking go. Versus the old Clay Matthews made a living off the 2-point, stance. Obviously he's a Hall of Fame Green Bay guy. But
my bad, Jamie.
No. But that's kind of, I guess it is like a toolbox thing. It's like, I mean, they're probably not going to put Clay Matthews' hand in the dirt if he's getting the job done.
Right. And like, I'm probably going to be able to peel on a running back a lot easier from a 2-point stance. I'm going to be able to drop into coverage, easier from a 2-point stance. I think it just comes down to, like, you don't want to always stand up when you peel or, drop as the rat and always put your hand down when you rush. But as a base, I would like to try to teach my guys to play from a 3-point stance as the ends.
In 22, we were playing Christ School. We peeled with the running back in the boundary. They're on the +20. We peel with the wheel route. The offensive tackle is blocking him the whole time he's peeling in the end zone. They catch it and they don't say anything, touchdown. I was like,
sick.
Are you kidding me? They ran a wheel route. We peeled and we got flat back by the lineman in the end zone. Like,
you got to put that one in.
Yes. All right. Spencer,
I'm out of this one. This is Jamie and Spencer.
Well, we probably are going to agree. I mean, we're both cut from the same cloth on this one, but
I'm out.
All right, so quarterback throwing motion. We're starting to see a lot more like flattened out deliveries. That quote unquote zero positions getting a little bit further out. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, are you quarterback throwing motion now? Is it better, worse? What are your thoughts on just the throw motion, like the direction that we're seeing with this?
First of all, I'm so far removed from that area that I almost am kind of embarrassed to try to weasel my way through this. I would probably say motions are better. I think probably more high school kids can throw a football better these days than back when we were like flicking the booger and pulling the chain and elbowing the little person,
ripping the elbow and kicking the quarter.
Yeah, like I just think people, once again, it started to trickle down from professional development and more people understand. I think the thing with zero position, a lot of people, joke and hate on zero position on Twitter and stuff. I think Coach Slack was way ahead of his time.
Absolutely.
I think like at the end of the day, zero position was a snapshot. Then it was like a not a very dynamic position. The only thing zero position really explained was there was an optimal kinetic chain. There was an optimal, sequence of movement that put your elbow in a position to make throws. I think obviously Patrick Mahomes and guys that we see on TV making some of the crazy throws, kids want to be able to do that just because it looks cool. And there isn't a correct way to throw a football. Like you look at the NFL, there's a lot of different throwing motions. All those guys are elite athletes. You talk about golf swings. There's a ton of different golf swings. I think there are optimal things, probably more from a timing aspect. I would probably say that timing up things like, your weight shift, when your hips and your rib cage, how they work together, it's much more of probably a timing and sequence thing these days, more so than it is certain positions or certain movements.
Yeah, I think about it like, with baseball and golf, it's like what they all kind of end up at the same position at impact.
Right.
Right. So like regardless of the load, there's some kind of load, right? And I really relate throwing a football to hitting a baseball versus throwing one.
Yeah, it's a very rotational.
It's like core, and then you got, all the terms, the slack terms of dissociation and all that, right? But like it's the same thing as hitting a baseball. Like there's a coil, there's a separation of your rib cage and hips, and then I don't care where the load happens. But like in football, it's like I think it is like I don't care where you do what you do to get there, but like getting into zero position, they're all there. Like you could see the still shots of Mahomes and Rodgers and all those guys, and even when they're throwing it sidearm, they're not really lowering their arm. It's like they're just having this like anterior tilt, like a sidearm pitcher would, right? Like it's not like he's laying it down a lot more. It's almost like his whole upper body is moving down, but the positioning is the same. Like the geometry is the same.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Like the elbow is going to be in front of the body. Like
correct. At some degree. Yeah.
With the elbows, behind the rib cage. Yeah. It's
right. But no, I'm with you. I think the throwing motion, I mean, everybody's being trained better now. There's all the quarterback trainers and they're all pretty good. And like, I mean, it's the skills are there. I think what I start to see is like, there's not a whole lot of like anything with that sometimes with the training things. It's just the throwing motion. It's just I'll say this, the controversial one for me is watching all the footwork like crap online. like all the I mean, and here I'm just gonna say it, like all the ladder drills for quarterbacks, like when do they ever do that? And the same thing with receivers, like when does like creating separation require super fast, like small movement of your feet?
Right.
Like and on your toes. Like so with like the quarterback throwing motion thing, I'll let you kind of comment on that. But like the toes up, like, hey man, be on your toes with the quarterback stuff. That's out, man. Like you better at some point get your heel in the ground because that's the only way you can fire your glute to rip your hips to your target. Like you cannot do it from your toes. You're quad dominant on that. So it's like hitting a baseball on your toes. You don't do it. Right. You have to be, your heels have to be in the ground. So that's one of the things that I see.
Yeah, we could spend the rest of this episode talking about, the smoke and mirrors that are out there, not even just in quarterback training, but just in personal training in general. One thing that always really bothers me is seeing people train in sand. That does not, I would just like to try to hear are
you saying that Rocky Balboa and Rocky 3 running at the beach is wrong? Are you saying that that's the reason
Rocky was a Vietnam?
He didn't beat Clubber Lang? Like what are you saying here?
Rocky was a Vietnam War vet from Philadelphia. That dude can train anywhere. I might be getting movies mixed up.
I think Rocky was a sequel of the First Blood movies.
Right.
So they're the same character.
Like you see NFL guys training in the sand. Like it don't matter where they train. Like they're NFL guys. I promise you, doing 3-step drops at the local beach volleyball court is not making you better. And like there's science to prove that. And like I remember being in high school when I was a quarterback with NFA. This might have been in college when I was doing the college mentor thing. I remember Coach Slack like sending out a staff-wide email with like a scientific study, and it was something like when you start to get into a resistance threshold that's like, I can't remember the exact percent, but let's say that like if you reach a threshold where there's 10% more resistance in a movement, you're not even working the same like neuromuscular patterns. You're not even working the same, like your brain, your muscles aren't even thinking or firing in the way that they would for the other skill. All right. It's like why like throwing weighted footballs is like when I was younger, you threw a weighted football because that was going to make you stronger. Or you put the donut on the end of the bat because, you know, it felt lighter and it felt like you were swinging it faster, you know, but you weren't. Like,
but you're learning how to do it slower. It's like velocity-based training. You don't, it's like, that would be the same thing as saying, well, I'm going to do forward lunges to get faster. Like, no, you sprint to get faster. You move your arm faster to throw the ball faster.
Your
Like,
ass is going to be sore. That's what it's going to be.
Dude, I'll never forget. Me and Spencer go play golf one day, and we're warming up on the range. And I look over, and this mug is doing jumping jacks. And I said, "What are you doing?"
1.5 handicap, dude. Let him do what he wants to do.
Get your body in peak.
I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Hey, man."
Ready.
He said,
Overhead
"Dude,
squats.
you can't warm up just swinging 2 or 3 clubs in your hand." He said, "You got to warm your body up, dude." I said, that day, I said, "This
He's
dude
over there
takes this
doing world's
way
greatest
more
stretch
serious."
down the day.
My best golf rounds come from running from the truck to the cart and trying to make my tee time and not thinking about it. But dude, when you were busting out with some old on the range, I was cracking up, dude. That was good. But no, man, I agree with you. I think understanding how to drive force through the ground is the biggest thing. Like, and that's every position. Like when you're pulling left as an offensive lineman, too many people focus on the opening and driving through that open step. No, you gotta focus on driving off your back step to create that power to get your movement going. And you know, people who have more their ankles are more extension have a tougher time generating power because they can't flex them to drive that heel in the ground. But all right, so while we're on the quarterback train, let's go ahead and do this one. When we're talking about pass game, you know, there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat: defender keying, throwing the grass, pure progression. Talk a little bit about what we think combination or what you think's best. Let's just get in this a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. There's one way to skin the cat efficiently. I'm just kidding. But you know, there's been a lot of people that have had a lot of success with different ways, and it happens at every level of football. I think when it comes to teaching passing progressions, just in general, you know, at a very global perspective, not talking about any systems or anything, like I think you have to have a language, all right, that communicates, you know, where to look in the timeline. You need to have a language that communicates movement, all right, the movements that you see, you know, pre and post snap. You need to have a way to quickly communicate leverage before the play, after the play. And you have to have a good understanding of how your concepts, you know, what space are they attacking, what defenders are they affecting. And with all that being said, you know, the R4 system was what I found that gave me all of those things. I think, you know, as getting to work with Doug and really getting to see some of the innovation there, you know, going just from the original R4 system to, you know, he got into the study with like capology and stuff of like anchor points. And that's where, you know, and kind of towards over the past year or two, we really got into try to develop language that could define movement, language that kind of tied in leverage, movement, and intent all together. Like you have to have a way to communicate that, you know, like throwing to grass is, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. There's been a lot of people that have been successful throwing to grass, but I think where you run into problems sometimes is my definition of grass, y'all's definition of grass, and a player's perception of grass is a lot different. So there could be times where that works, but there could also be times where there's, you know, issues just because you don't have, you haven't trained in a way to, I guess, overcome a situation that you weren't expecting or that arises, like a movement or something that's a little bit different. Like, but I mean, like I was saying, there's a lot of ways to do it. You hear like pure progression get thrown out a lot. I don't really know what that means.
I don't know what that means either.
I think for like defender key stuff, what we always said was see the space, not the man. You definitely want to be aware of a defender, like in a smash concept, like you need to know what the corner is doing. All right. But you just can't stare at that guy. All right. Cause it takes time to find the receiver and then make the throw. Like you just have to have a really good idea of where my eyes are going. Like before the play, you need to know where your eyes are going. And then once you know that, it's just a matter of, okay, can I perceive what's happening in that area and then make a decision based on that? I know that was kind of
no, I for me, it's like you said it before with the absolutes, and I think I would definitely R4 guy, and I think the language that we all the reason I gravitate to the R4 is because I just started coaching quarterbacks, and I knew I was going to have something to have a conversation with them. That language allows you to do that. It's like, we're a new school now, and I'm like, why are you not throwing the 4-step out on smash here? And he's like, well, the corner's really close. Well, like, what does close mean? And so that gives us an opportunity to reinforce that language. Like, and I'm not going to get into the language here, but there's a language to talk about, the cushion, hip angle, and all that stuff. And so that stuff starts making sense, not just for the quarterback, for the receivers too. And we started to kind of go through this like quick game, like the quick game stuff. Then we kind of have the intermediate on the backside. We've gone to more of a defender, quote unquote, a defender key, but it's like through the space. So yeah, we're reading the corner, right? But really, you have to have more of a soft focus than like just staring straight at the guy, because you can't see the receiver to make an accurate throw either. So it's one of those things, man. I'm with you. I think you have to be able to teach that. I mean, all of our stuff is obviously progression based, but I think there are times, like especially with a young quarterback, if they can really get good at defender keys and quick game, you're going to have a lot of success. But then if you have an advanced guy, you don't really need to go through all that. Like we had a quarterback at Cannon that he was a guy that could intuit the field really well without us having to really go through the cap, if that makes sense. Like I didn't have to explain that to him. He kind of understood what open was already. And then if there was ever any issues, we already had a language built in. So I could, because he might disagree with me. I'm like, well, let's go back and really look at this. And he's like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. But for other kids, especially young kids that have never played before or haven't played varsity football before, I think it's great to really hammer that stuff in to make sure that language is in place. And that way you can go back on film and look. But I'm with you, man. I think the R4 stuff is the best.
I mean, even as a coach, like when I started calling offense, I've never played quarterback, dude. Like I knew all the run schemes. I didn't know. Like I knew what curl flat was, as coming up early. But it was like, so I guess for me, and this is why I'm such a believer in the R4, is one, it allows you to create a timeline with your drops, match your drops to your concepts,
your breaks, yeah.
And like the easiest way that I would teach it to new kids, being a new interpreter of the quarterback play, never playing it, or I can't even throw a ball. Like y'all have seen my throwing motion, it's awful. But it's like, okay, we're progression based, so we have a route 1, route 2, route 3. Okay, so it's important to understand, where does this route break, and where's the space it breaks in? Who's the only defenders on the field that can take that space away? And then as we're going through our drop that matches up with the timing of route 1, where our eyes go, like Spencer said, who can take the space away, and are they capping it at that moment in the timeline? And if they are, I'm moving to my next route. And
T4, and that for me, that's almost like a defender key in a way.
Yes. Right? 100%.
Like without getting to like big and like the vernacular, but that really is kind of what it is. You're really trying to see the route side space defender key is kind of where I'm.
And it's like the smash one, like you can't just stare at the corner, because if he's driving on the because if he's driving on the hitch, that safety could be in good position to come undercut that ball. So it's like you have to be aware of the corner.
And here's another one too, with the R4. It's like sometimes I'll ask a kid, like, okay, you ran snag at some point in your career. Tell me your progression. And they tell me the progression, and I'm like, okay, well, why do you guys go to that route first? Well, we really don't know. I'm like, well, how do you know if the corner route's even open if you're not going to first, if that makes sense. Like, I know some guys will go snag back to corner, but for us, that corner route for us comes open quicker than the snag does. I know some guys may run it a little deeper now. So if you run like an 8-step, it might be good to come back to that. But a 6-step, you almost have to do that on rhythm. But anyway, it just gives you a lot of context to even like have those conversations with the kids, is my point.
But it's like, you know, the other day at practice, we pulled a receiver over to quarterback, and you went through cap drill with the 2-man snag with the back fast.
The hardest quick game.
And it's like,
and if that's even quick game.
In 10, it's like in 10 minutes, he did not make one misread based on the cap. And you literally looked at me and said, and that's why the R4 is the best thing we ever invested in.
I mean, I looked at the head coach and I mean, he looked at it, it's like, dang, man, this kid's completing snag, like basically full progression read, like in day one. And it's just the language that we use. He's just able to come in there and it makes sense to him. Hey, man, you got 3-step drop, 6-step corner on rhythm. If that's not there, hitch up for snag back. Like, it's good stuff, man. We can go on and on about that, but
well, we'll kind of lead into similar. All right, this is a big Twitter topic. 7-on-7, beneficial or not real football?
Are we talking about like
it's not real football and it's beneficial?
Yeah, so like just kind of your stance on 7-on-7, how important it is. Do you believe in doing it throughout the summer? Like, what do you think about it in 7-on-7?
I think 7-on-7 as a drill in practice is, I think it is beneficial. I think it's like a good way to, it's a way to introduce progressions and concepts and coverages. I think it's easy to get into bad habits, but I think with diligent coaching, you can make sure there aren't bad habits. If your quarterback's getting, team pass and passes in team or passes in, a pup period, then I think, it's okay for him to do 7-on-7. It could be a confidence builder a little bit. I think 7-on-7 over the summer with your teams at like, controlled environments, controlled settings are good. The way that they run 7-on-7s out here in Oklahoma, as far as the big high schools that host, my first summer out here, it just blew my mind. Just the coordination, the amount of reps, the competitiveness, and just the absence of all the crap that you start to see in 7-on-7 that's unaffiliated with schools, and unaffiliated with coaches, the ones that are in the winter, January, February, March 7-on-7s that are ran by people unaffiliated with, programs at all. I think from a kid's perspective, I'm all for kids going and do that. What I hate about it, and where I think ultimately where the issue lies, is because a 16-year-old kid's going to act like a 16-year-old kid, especially around other 16-year-olds. So, like, of course, the kids are going to act like idiots. If the people there, if the adults in charge let them do that, I think where the issue lays is the coaches and the people that come up with these programs, and the adults that are in charge of this, they aren't doing it in a way that's conducive to the athlete. It's not ran in a way to make them better football players. It's ran in a way to create something that can go on social media. It's, to put money in people's pockets. So I'm a fan of 7-on-7. If you can make it as real, or if you can make it as close to real football as possible, it's when you start taking it, it's when you start getting away from the game and the rules and the dynamics of football, and other stuff starts seeping in, where it's just like, man, that's a joke. They passed a rule in Oklahoma where we can no longer be involved with any 7-on-7 unless it's like middle school or lower. And I'm actually thankful for it, because we would go play, we'd go to a weekend tournament, and, here I am with a call sheet trying to figure out what the other team, like, I'm approaching this like I would, a game. And then you got another coach on the field who does it as a hobby, or is doing it to make money, who has absolutely no clue how to how to coach the game of football, and it's like, man, I don't want to spend my going against that guy.
You're exactly right. So football used to be the last, like, school only sport, right?
Right.
Well, we've seen other sports go down this road, right? You've seen baseball go down this road. And I'm just going to say it like it is. The travel baseball scene has ruined baseball in high school.
Really?
That is ruined baseball. There is no, like, everybody wants to play the travel ball stuff more than they want, and the showcase stuff more than they want to play high school. Right. Like, it's gotten to that point. I mean, the level of baseballs, we're not even sprinting to our spot on the field, man. Like, I'm not saying about any of the schools that I've been at, but just schools that we've coached against. And, like, you're like, man, what is going on here? And you can certainly see that with when teams outside of the school or organizations outside of your school are not in it for the development of the player.
100%.
They're in it for whatever they want to be in it for, right? And I know I'm biased, right? So for me, it's like, I want the kid to develop to be great at high school football, so then he can be great and have opportunities elsewhere. Same thing in other sports. It's like these other sports, whether it be club, whether it be AAU or whatever, 7-on-7 winter league and wherever, like, there's some ulterior motives that take away from the development of the player. And you can see that. And the reason is because there's not very good coaching. Let's be honest about that. Like, it's hard to find high school coaches, let alone youth ball and 7-on-7. And, I'm sure the club stuff for soccer and volleyball is great, but, like, travel baseball is not probably coached by high school baseball coaches. It's probably not coached by college baseball coaches. It's probably coached by dad. Right. And so that's kind of the nature of this. And I think we're starting to see that with some 7-on-7 stuff. But thankfully it's year enough around in high school that we can kind of get them back in the spring and kind of get them righted out. But that's me on my soapbox. So I'll get off that.
No, man, I think you're valid in everything you're saying. And I think some of these kids are enjoying going to do those 7-on-7 leagues more than they are school ball. It's getting to that point with football.
There's no accountability. There's no responsibility. There's no, we can wear what we want to wear, which is whatever.
We can head tap people.
We can head tap people. We can use what language we want to use. And we get the hype video.
Yep. 100%.
And then the coaches, they're, like, they're getting what they want out of it.
Yeah. And I think just like anything in football, if you do it in a realistic manner, in a controlled setting, the correct way, it can be super beneficial. Like when you're teaching coverages and that pattern match stuff, eye controls everything. Leverage, alignment, eye control. It's everything. So, which is going to bring me to my next topic that I'm getting ready to get on. But it's like, I think 7-on-7 is beneficial if you do it the right way. Linebackers, take your run read step and then get to your pass, And in my opinion, the defense has the advantage in every controlled drill that's not team because they know it's coming. Inside run, it's run. 7-on-7, it's pass. Like, there's no what is it going to be. But it's like, I'm so sick of seeing unrealistic stuff where people are just trying to win 7-on-7 tournaments or just trying to win the drill. It's like, hey, man, like, you just ran mirrored smash with the running back going down a gap down the middle of the field. Like
you're shallow, like behind the line of scrimmage, behind the center.
Yeah, like you're not gonna do that, man. And it's like that. And then
the Tommy gun celebrations in the Olympics. Now,
and it's like every drill.
Make sure we're sending. I mean,
I don't mind high school. I don't mind high school 7-on-7. Like, if you want to go to a tournament because you're with your boys, your coaches are coaching you. You're gonna be able to try to fix it's fun, it's exciting. The benefit of that, I think there's some benefit of that. You get to compete together, you get to lose together, you get to win together, you get to figure each other out a little bit early. But yeah, the non-affiliated stuff is kind of,
it's just like, and there's even high school teams that I've won against that's just trying to win the tournament. Like, they're running things. It's like that. I know they don't run because we play them and we have 7 scout films on them. You know what I mean? It's like, that's where I start getting.
That's a personal preference.
Sure,
100%. I think some coaches really put a lot of emphasis on winning at everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, if we win here, then our kids have a winning mentality. Are we maybe not going to run some of this stuff in the season? Maybe not. I get both sides of that one.
100%. But it's like, keeping the realistic part. And it's like, man, we're trying to work on our stuff and you're sitting back in 2-man every play. You know what I mean? It's like,
it's like what Spencer and them do in Oklahoma. It's very controlled. It's like,
I love it.
It's not like a tournament style. Like there's no winner and loser really. Like it's like you're just getting a ton of reps.
Yeah.
So that's what I like.
We don't keep score. I think a couple of them we did last summer. We didn't even like move the ball. Like we did open field and then we did red zone and like, there's some teams around here, some guys around here that you just get relationships with, and it's like, hey, you want to see anything specific, on this next set, or not a lot of that, but it's in a controlled setting. It's the best version of 7-on-7 I've ever seen was how we did pass shoot at York. I've seen other people call it 9-on-9, but it's 7-on-7. And you have two offensive linemen, whether it's, your two tackles, your two guards, you could do two adjacent linemen just working basically the man side of a protection. Hell, you could do three and work, the
slot blitz or whatever. Yeah.
I think that's kind of the best overall variation that we've ever been a part of, I've ever done, just because it adds, it makes the quarterback, just a little bit more pressured. That guys have to think about throwing over, throwing around, and
it's more controlled. You're not going to get guys rolled up,
Right.
You can even work the running backs in that. I think we probably could have done that a little bit more with like a blitzing linebacker, just like a one-on-one fit at the line of scrimmage. Like, I think that's something I love team pass. I actually prefer as we get into the season to do more team pass for that reason, just to get that pressure. And then obviously putt periods too, where we're just going to get, hey man, we're going to go on one. We're not trying to fool the defense. You guys give us these looks and like try to really light us up like it's third, it's passing situation. So that puts a lot of pressure on our offensive line. And I tell those guys like, look, if we're going to go, 3 out of 10, like in the game, we'll probably have a little better chance than that, but at least it puts pressure on us.
I haven't heard putt period in a while, man.
Is that like old school?
No, I mean, we used it at York.
Yeah, that's where I remember that.
That's probably where, that's where I came up, but it's nice to hear that. That brings back a lot of good memories.
Good memories, man.
Hey, DBs, DB coaches, get out from behind the defense. Go stand behind the quarterback and read the DB's eyes. So, one, we can throw touchdowns. But two, so your guys can get better, because you're looking at the back of their helmet, no clue where their eyes are. Like, if you're a DB coach and you're not coaching from the offensive perspective, you're losing so much. You could be so much better.
I like how you just inserted that hot take in there.
It's my 7-on-7 realistic stuff. There's coaches standing back there, and we can't throw posts because there's three dudes. Yeah, it's like this realistic stuff.
Throw posts right at them.
They'll pick it off.
And they picked it off. The coach picked the ball off.
Now, he's a freak now. He is good. He's good. He broke like hell on that ball.
He sure did.
All right. What's next? Which one do we want to go with next? Let's see. All right. So, all right. Let's just do the two-platoon one. All right. We two-platoon. All right. With crossover, or do you feel like everybody plays both ways with minimal specializing?
I remember this was a big thing we went through at York. And
depends, but it's like,
well, it's like
let's say
Bobby brought a lot of sense to it. Bobby said, all right, how many kids are truly going to play snaps on both sides? And when we looked at it, there were 5 or 4, I remember. And he was like, I can't justify everybody going through both sides of the ball for 4 kids.
Exactly.
We have to cross them over. So, and that was a big thing that I took away from York and learned on how to do it. Because
go ahead, Dustin. I'm sorry.
Because I know you're good. It's like same programs, different coaches. You went full two-platoon at Cannon.
And I was going to, I can kind of explain that piece too, which I think was interesting.
We couldn't, and it was crazy because it's the same number of kids, but the skill levels were different. We didn't have enough to two-platoon. So we had to, but you still had those players that never went to the other side of the ball. Like quarterbacks, they were with Caleb all practice.
Right. Yeah. So for us, we said, okay, my thing was like, and I might have gotten this from Coach Carroll, or maybe, no, it was Joe Salas. So Joe Salas taught me this one because he's a big two-platoon, air raid, go fast. He said, if you go both ways, you can't go fast. And that was his kind of philosophy.
Certainly, it definitely limits what you can do.
And so he said, so I was like, well, how do you who's going to play receiver and who's going to play corner, right? Like who's going to play running back, who's going to play linebacker. And he said he's going to prioritize offense as long as, so we will not two-platoon a kid. Like we won't make a kid go both ways if we find that the guy behind him at that position is 80% as good as him. And I know that's kind of subjective.
I remember listening to that episode though, and y'all kind of went deeper into how to get those parameters, but that did make a lot of sense.
I don't even know. I can't remember we even talked about that, but like that's always kind of resonated with me. And then we were at Cannon, which was a very similar situation. It's kind of like 2A ball, like kind of numbers. So it was like, okay, we want that our really, really good receiver not to get super tired, right? We want to go fast, and then, but is our corner going to get freaking burnt like Hill? Like, you know what I mean? And so once we figured that wasn't going to be the case, but we would put our receiver in at corner in the, obviously the crunch time situations. Like we always had our best players on the field because we crossed them over. Same thing with our running back. He would go to defensive end, just try to get a great rush on 6 or 7 third downs a game. So, but that's kind of our take on it.
Yeah, I agree with y'all. I think obviously there's situations where you got to do one or the other, or there might be situations where you got to teach guys both sides of the ball, probably at your smaller schools. School like Union, we've got 120 kids, 130 kids. There's some kids that aren't ever going to get good in an offensive position. There's some kids that are not ever going to be a defensive player. And that's me speaking generally, not just here. So I think you definitely two-platoon but I do think, and I remember Coach Wallace talking about this. Coach Wallace said that they probably lost 3 or 4 state championships at Northwestern for not teaching their DBs to be second string receivers or, third string receivers. So if you have a kid that can help you win a football game, all right, by getting him the ball or by playing him on defense, you need to have that kid prepared to do that. And you need to have a plan on how to do that. Just because like when it's crunch time, you want your best 11 guys on the field. And sometimes that means, sometimes that could mean your best athlete. Sometimes it might not. But I think in good systems and good programs, I think it's in a way like you should be able to teach a small part of your offense to a defensive player, and you should be able to teach a small part of your defense to an offensive player. If you can really identify what they can do, all right, and how they're going to help the team, just focus on that. They don't have to know the whole playbook. They don't have to know.
Wristband them.
Yeah. They might
find a way to do it.
Be a part of the third down package. Like, figure it out. Figure out a way to get your best people on the field when it matters.
Learn 5 routes, kid. If you can learn 5 routes, we'll be fine.
Yeah, and another thing too, going back to like what Coach Wallace says, like if we're going to prioritize, I know this is kind of another one, like prioritizing positions like offense and defense and who goes where. Like if there's not everybody on your team that's a great athlete can actually score touchdowns.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like there's like the freak DN that looks like a wide receiver but cannot run a route or like catch a ball. Like he doesn't need to be a wide receiver. There's a DB out there that runs like a 4.4 but just can't figure it out on offense, or can catch it but just doesn't have enough wiggle to score. You got to find the guys that can score and put them on offense, because there's only like 3 or 4 probably dudes that can do that.
Yeah.
And one of them's got to be running back. I mean, you can't miss on a running back. You can't miss on quarterback. If you're going through your team, Spencer, well, how would you prioritize positions? Let's say like with the two-platoon, assuming that they were kind of equal on both sides of the ball. How would you prioritize the positions? Like if they were going to be the same, the same caliber player on offense as they were on defense, where would you start with that?
I think it would probably come down to the position itself. Like on the defensive side of the ball, I want my best players, and I mean that subjectively, in the sense of best at their position. I want my corners to be really good, and I want my defensive line to be really good. All right, I can get away with average linebackers. I can get away with average safeties. And I say get away because obviously you can't. If they're just bad, you're not going to be able to make up for that. But corner and defensive line, probably want my best coaches and my best players there. From an offensive perspective, I think you got to identify and who your quarterback is first. You know, he's the kid on your team that's probably going to touch the ball the most.
He's the face of the program.
You know, he's the face of the program. You got to really make sure he's. I think
hey, man.
Decided to start doing that.
You know, I was trying to insert the program.
I want to see how many times I could say it.
Dude,
All right, here you go, Spencer. Travis Hunter. What are you doing with Travis Hunter?
Defense.
Corner.
And sprinkle him in at X.
Yeah, because like
100%.
Like you were saying, dude, man, anybody can line up at X and learn slant, hitch, or you know, and you really don't even have to do those things well to. Like, you don't have to run a good slant if you're a
presence is going to create a bracket.
If you're a dude, you don't need Indy on one side of the ball. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I got one. Jadeveon Clowney. All right, would you have started him at fullback in the flex bone, which he played at times and was really good at it, or would you start Clowney at defensive end?
Dude, I think that defense scored more points that year than the offense did.
3 technique.
They only gave up like 97.
Dude, what was it? It was like they would, if the offense didn't score any points all year, they would have still went like 6-4.
Yeah, it's exactly.
It's like stupid.
It was like 28 special teams touchdowns.
Yeah, that's insane.
Crazy. Well, hey, man, I think we got time for 1 or 2 more. So
let's just keep it rolling, man. Don't put us on a time.
Let's hit. All right,
Spencer's like 3 hours behind us.
This is starting to kind of pick up in high school football. I know 2, 3 high schools doing this, but they go first block football class, and they practice. Practice starts technically before school, and then goes in to first block, and then they'll end practice midway first block, get their lift in or film, and then they go to second block. So, how do you feel about changing the traditional practice times? You know, are you superstitious or believe that heat's a factor and we need to practice the same time we play? What are your guys' kind of opinions on that?
There's been times where the heat's so bad out here in Tulsa that we've had to literally practice before school. That's usually early summer. And yeah, it did happen before school. So I think sometimes you have to do it. And I know there's schools out here that have a 0 hour where kids come in before school. They do stuff. All right, maybe lift, you know, do your meetings. Then they go to school. Then 4th hour, you can go ahead and start practice. I think probably the easiest thing would be, and where I would err on the side of keeping it more traditional, having a 4th or a 6th hour football. We're not on block scheduling out here. Like, even our high school is on like period scheduling. So we have 6 classes during the day. And that would be mainly because, like, anytime we've ever done things early in the morning, I feel like you just have such a problem getting people there. Like, your kids that ride the bus might not be able to make it to which I guess if it's first hour, like you were saying, yes, that would be fine because they would already be at school. There probably is validity to that where you can go ahead and, you know, get it out of the way.
Well, it's like, also think about how your workload changes as a coach.
Right.
Like, all your scripts, all your scout cards, everything has to be ready to go at 6:37 in the morning.
I would rather do lift and film and still time in that morning's block, and maybe special teams. So let's say that your coaches off campus can't get there, right? But your guy on campus needs to be a special teams guy. You'll probably have coordinators there to help. Let's go lift. Let's go film. And let's go outside and get our 20-minute special teams block done. And you probably might even be able to steal time with special teams. Your special teams probably improved because of that.
Yep.
And then if you don't have guys that are, you know, coming in or whatever, you know, all your dudes really don't have to be there. You know, like if
maybe you
and then after school, right after school, you get offense and defense and kill it, man. You're still out early. And I mean, kids are still getting into bed.
You could get your pat and go, your perfect, and your circle chase and all that done in class. So
all your ball security
practice is literally we're going group
and team,
you know. And
you could install, you could
you get it all in. And I think that's a good, like, no absolutes kind of thing. It's like kind of balance it out where you don't maybe need all your coaches if they're not on campus.
A cool idea that some guys out here I've talked about this with them, but like it's hard to hire high school coaches. It's even harder to hire like 9th grade and sub high school level coaches. Your 7th and 8th grade. It would be nice if you could almost like, if your varsity staff could run like first, if your 8th grade academy or if your 8th grade school had first hour football, you could go coach those kids. All right. And then you do 4th hour football or 6th hour football in the afternoon. Like, and I know that's not exactly relevant to what we were talking about, but I think that would just be a way to generate like really good, one, it gets you out of the classroom. 2, it's a way to really increase that linear progression, that vertical progression as kids grow up in the program.
And another thing that's great with that's our sponsor Team Builder, tracking all that from the time they're in middle school all the way up into high school, being able to track their numbers and program and plan their workouts, whether you're a block 0 guy or you're a 1x20 guy. Team Builder provides that for you. It allows you to, when you're in a pinch and you don't have as much time to program for the weight room and plan, Team Builder's there to help you and take it to the next level. So I appreciate what they offer there.
Can't wait for the practice deal to drop. We get the first release of that coming in, so we're excited to test that out. I'm sure it's gonna be a great product. All right, so next one, we're gonna kind of finish up here in just a little bit, but I want to get to pregame types. So I know a lot of coaches are sticklers for pregame. Let's get into that a little bit. Is there too much? Is there too little? My saying is always like, and I don't actually follow this. I should, but I've never seen a dog stretch before he gets up off that porch and chases that truck. So is there, now I'm sure there's certainly some science behind that, but Coach, what are your thoughts on pregame stuff?
I think, one thing that I would like to do is, and I would never be capable of this because I'm 8th grade science teacher and high school football coach. There's people way smarter than me that could maybe get me this data. But like we wear GPS units. Like every one of our starters gets one, and we basically everybody in the 2 deep wears a GPS. And our strength coach does a wonderful job of tracking that stuff and documenting that stuff. And I would like to see, what do you want your pregame to replicate? Is there a day of practice that it needs to be like? Is there a part of practice? What's the optimal getting warmed up and getting primed for football movements? I personally think people do too much. Just because like tradition is to get out there and do all the stuff that everybody does. You probably don't need to do a lot to get, ready for a football game if you've had a good week of practice. But to make this long-winded answer pretty short, I would say there probably are people out there that are doing research with the GPS and the player load stuff and really optimizing their pregame stuff. I've seen people do crazy stuff in pregame. Me and Dustin played against a team in college that like did up downs before, like hundreds of yards of up down.
Wash machine rolls also.
I mean,
Hold
yeah,
on,
it's
dude.
unbelievable stuff.
Hold on, man. At York, them dudes at like 4:00 would get done eating, and they'd go to the locker room, put their feet up, and listen to that weird music. You don't remember that? That was like 2014, man. And they would just do that for an hour. Hey, man, go to sleep. Listen to the weird music from Coach Herschel. That was wild, man.
We we do our group 1 specialist for 10 minutes. We do the skills for 10 minutes. That's normally where they did their perfect and pat and go. But from the time DW started to the time we either go back to the locker room or go to the end zone, it was 18 minutes is what we use for the warm up for DW, Indy, quick team of each side, and then your punt and PAT. But I would do about 18 or 19 minutes outside of the group 1 and group 2 stuff. And because it's like, you don't want to overload them, but you want to do something, you know what I mean? It's like, as a OL, man, I could crack my neck and all right, I'm good. Like, you know what I mean? But it's like literally like, dude, I do 1 squat, everything pops. We're good, boys. Let's go. Like, it's like, it's kind of that thing. It's like, okay, baseball and even football at times. How long are you static on the side? And you don't re-warm back up before you go out. You know what I mean? Like your team gets hot with the bats. and you're in the dugout for 17 minutes. Okay, now I'm running out to center field, and the very first hit, I got to sprint 40 yards this way. You know what I mean? It's like,
I think it's overrated. And I used to, and honestly, pregame, I was a stickler, and I was like, man, we're going to go out there and, we got this, we got to get all this in. And it was probably too long. And just think about like NFL and college. Like, I feel like they go in pretty early, and it's like a long time before they come back out, But it's like you're saying, Dustin, like you could be on the sideline for 10 minutes. I mean, and then
watching
you got to go
2 to
back out
3
there.
yards and a cloud of dust on every play. And it's like,
so what I would think that the philosophy is like what you're saying is I would like to start later and get hot.
Yes.
And then go in instead of going out early, walking back and forth, 2, 3 groups, and then you're coming back out really early. You're out there for a long time, especially early in the season. And like, dude, you're dehydrated before you even snap the ball and your legs are gone because you literally walked 3 miles.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think early in the season should be your most shortest pregame warm up.
Right.
And as the season goes, you add time because it's colder.
Yeah. What I want is I don't care about anybody else except for quarterbacks and receivers. Like, honestly, because I want them to get a feel for it. Let's let them get a little confidence, get them catching some ball. I mean, everybody else is going to, like, what are you doing at, like offensive line,
We're pedaling
contact
and
prep.
driving on the ball, coach. We're
I
on
mean, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to make light of it, but it's like throwing and catching the ball, like in the conditions is probably the highest priority. So kickers.
Yeah. But like kickers can like kick too much.
Yes. Now kick the freaking leg all nervous and crap.
Dude, will you stop kicking some of your ball?
Hell, man, the high school uprights are like freaking 40 yards wide. You can't make it through that?
Yeah, hey, dude, we're not.
Like, good gosh, man.
Don't worry about it.
We will not even punt.
Don't warm up.
Yeah.
Wish that was the case.
If we cross the 40, we're going for it.
Like going.
If it's less than 4th and 7, we're going for it.
Probably so.
That's another controversial topic that.
No doubt. Go for it. Hit it.
I'm talking about pregame speeches.
Yeah.
Waste of time.
Hey, man, you got to fight to get across that goal line.
Complete waste of time.
Knute Rock, you're saying Knute Rock needs a waste of time, man? Are you saying that Vince Lombardi is a waste of time?
Unless you
are you saying
your
any
helmet,
given Sunday,
tighten your shoulder pads,
Al Pacino,
or the kid, it ain't that.
I mean,
are you talking about?
There's a time.
We got to fight for that inch. Are you saying that's a waste of time?
There's a time and place, and if you're the right guy, you can do it. But man, how about talk about the game? Talk about what you're going to have to do, coach. When you could have been you could have been reviewing third down plan. You could have been reviewing special teams depth charts.
100%.
Maybe you're hitting 100%. The damn coach's snack bar.
Yeah, I mean, you could be relaxing, like, but the kids, man, they
get
DP. Too long, man. They get too long.
My favorite thing, Spencer, when we went to Dorman, and the press box was 3 stories, and we were box coaches, and we found the booster room on the 2nd floor, and we made the biggest plates we could. And games going to start.
From y'all, man.
And
like,
me
hey,
and
man,
Spencer are just
freaking.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, that was a good night.
Shout out to Dorman for that meal. Appreciate that.
Yeah, shout out to them for not running it up.
Yeah, Coach Gutshaw.
They ran the kickoff return back.
I think Bobby said, "This ain't good, boys." No, he said this. He said, "Jamie, sorry, got you into this, man."
Oh yeah, that's his go-to. Hey, sorry, fellas.
All right, last one. We'll kill it. Thursday. So Thursday protocol. I know some guys don't coach, some guys don't practice. Some guys, I'm looking at Dustin. Some guys go straight home on Thursday. Some guys do a long Thursday. I know some guys that have their traditional Thursday practice on Wednesday and do a traditional Wednesday practice on Thursday. What are your thoughts on that, Coach?
I think the best Thursday practices that I've been a part of have been the ones that kind of simulate the game. kind of the flow of the game. And it's a way I almost look at Thursday practice like there's very few things that you're going to do on a Thursday, whether it's installing in something late or, having some revelation on doing something different that's probably going to have a huge impact on Friday. I think what Thursdays allow you to do is kind of is practice things like sudden change, your special teams depth charts, really hone in on maybe specific situations that are going to be big. And I think you can probably definitely do too much on a Thursday. You want to leave Thursday practices with confidence. I know when the whole no sweat practice, and I know that feels like forever ago, that kind of became on vogue, or the big thing. Like, you definitely want Thursday to maybe and maybe y'all know more about this than I do, but I always felt like Wednesdays you wanted to kind of back off a little bit because you've had a hard Monday and Tuesday, and then by Thursday you want to ramp it up just a little bit from a physical standpoint to kind of prime your body, but I think Thursday practices should be like your sharpest, most mental day. Where like no drops, asking questions, having guys go through their assignments, really making sure just that it's basically a dress rehearsal for the game. Like, let's make it as game-like as possible.
Yep.
Start with kickoff coverage, run a 4-play series with the offense, sub your punt team on, maybe work backed up punt, just kind of simulate a game so you can really cover all your bases. So you don't have issues on Friday night.
Yeah.
I think you can do too many plays. I think you can do too much.
Oh yeah. And overload, because the biggest thing, and I learned this talking with Travis Webb that we have on that was just on for Strength Week last week. But when we kind of sat down, I told him my themes for each day at practice. Like, we have Mental Monday, Tough Tuesday, Wager Wednesday, Top Notch Thursday is what we call Thursday. But it was like, it kind of matched what he was looking for as a strength coach, because he was all about Thursdays being a velocity day, a speed day. It wasn't the load day. And, the first year we practiced on Thursdays, and it was exactly what you're talking about. And what we did at York, it was just sudden change from start to beginning, getting kids on. We had 4 periods of 5 plays offense on air, 5 plays of defense versus the scout, but it was just tag off. And, and then we would mix in our special teams, and then those special situations, the Hail Mary, the last minute play where we lateral it and, do all those things. Well, the second year we didn't have a great situation with the lifting schedule, and we had to watch film, and I wasn't waiting until 5:45 to get out on the practice field.
Right.
So we lift before school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And my trade-off with that with the kids was, listen, on Thursdays, we'll lift before school. You go to school and you go home. Like that's what we did. And the only thing, I wouldn't do that. It worked for the situation, the size of the school, the league I was in, but I probably wouldn't do that anywhere else. But I will say, I never felt unprepared, or the kids never felt unprepared, other than if we needed a Hail Mary or that last minute play, which we did not need one time. You know what I mean? Everything else I felt secure in.
Yeah, York is where we got that scripted schedule. I love that. I think when Bobby went to that really kind of, and I think we did that I feel like we did that on Wednesday. And then we had a traditional practice Thursday. So we did something similar at Canton. It was like, we would go Monday and Tuesday are like normal, like your first and second down day. And then Wednesday, we would split that day into 2. So the first half of Wednesday, I would do third down. I would do goal line, like red zone, like scripted periods and all that. And then the second half would be your simulated script. So then I would go, you have your, kickoff, openers, defense versus your best run. Then it was third down offense versus the defense, like trying to convert. And then it was like goal line, red zone stuff all the way through. And then Thursday, that gave us time to work like the specific scenarios and then run through like third down again, red zone again, and goal line again on air, or against like just a soft front. And so I felt like we kind of got 2 Thursdays out of a Wednesday and Thursday mix. One's kind of live, and then one was just kind of reviewing on air. So we kind of took the best of both worlds on that. And it's worked really well. I mean, I really do think that our guys are prepared because you get basically 2 third down days, 2 goal line days, 2 red zone days. So that's pretty good for us. But yeah, Thursdays are crazy, man. I know some guys don't do it at all. And I think Coach Heron at South Point, they didn't even practice on Wednesday. He would like send them home. And then Thursdays would be like their traditional Wednesday practice. So interesting, man. I think they got that from Oregon back in Chip Kelly days or something.
Right.
So
Right.
that no sweat stuff.
Well,
good
I mean,
deal,
I
man.
would even the controversial part is argue is Thursday worth it?
Yeah.
Like maybe it is from like a prepping and priming your body.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, you could make the argument of, do most people just do Thursdays as a routine to do something?
I would say if it's standing around and you got your guys on the sideline and they're bull crapping and you're talking to your kickoff team for 6 minutes, then I don't think it's worth it.
Completely.
I think you know, if you want to do like a simulated script for 25 minutes, make sure you got the guys that are on and off, like special teams, like the simulated stuff. And at the end, if you want to talk as an offense or you want to talk as a defense, like I think that's way better. I don't like the stuff on the sideline. I don't like
Right.
and I think that's 90% of programs will have like, hey, we're going to talk to our kickoff team and they're going to make sure they review everything because we probably didn't practice it during the week enough, you know, like, and then you got guys and their coaches are yelling at the sideline kids for sitting on helmets and balls on the ground. Like, you know, like everybody's been there. Right. So if you just have something scripted enough to where like it's on and off really quick, you have less downtime. And I think that's what I want to get out of Thursday, not pissed off.
Yes.
Right. Like you had a great freaking week. Now Thursday's pissed everybody off. I've had a negative speech to the kids before a big game. Like, you know how it is, man. Like you don't want to be negative on Thursday. It's like, it probably needs to be like positive Thursday. Like whatever we can do in our schedule, if it ain't practicing and you're going to leave positive, then that's better than having a really crappy walkthrough.
So, there's nothing worse than going out there on air on offense and you throw 2 or 3 completions on air immediately.
Yeah,
like start it over. Like
on our no sweat days, on our no sweat, which Wednesday we did a very light practice on Wednesdays. We didn't throw a ball, and it was a way for Shaker to kind of rest his arm, because he was always on a pitch count, not because he couldn't handle it, but just because we knew that we were going to play a long season. You know, like we knew we were going to be playing 11, 12 games, and you know, just some stuff that we got from Coach Hewlett. Like if we could give him a break throwing a full day, then it was going to be more beneficial than it was not. And it forced our receivers to really emphasize their breaks, their break points. You know, we didn't have to worry about people dropping balls and not making throws. You know, quarterback was able to go through full progressions. And, you know, that helped. It also helped slow guys down because we were really bad about running too many plays and not backing off our guys based on what the head coach wanted. And that just kind of forced us into like, hey, this is going to be more of a mental period. Even though it's full, you know, we're full field, we're full, you know, not necessarily full speed, but I liked that, you know, the not throwing thing. But you might not be able to do that in every scenario. Your quarterbacks might need to throw every day. You know, our quarterback past 2 years was an exception. Past 3 years, exception.
Well, hats off to you guys for doing something like unconventional.
Right.
Right. I mean and I'll just say this too. Another controversial one is like, okay, if you don't throw it all on Wednesday, then you're not catching or throwing. And if you, for whatever reason, don't execute on Friday, then you know, the low hanging fruit is, well, they don't even practice on Wednesday. Like you gotta have some, you know, some cojones to do that. So hats off to you guys. I mean, that's not that you guys probably, I mean, I'm sure you guys execute really high at a high level, but yeah, that's, man, good for you guys for doing something out of the box. I never thought about that. I'd like to hear Hewlett and kind of what he thinks like a good pitch count would be. And if he sees like velocity fall off or for that stuff too, that'd be interesting to maybe talk to him about that too.
One cool thing that I learned recently is TrackMan is starting to, quarterback trainers are starting to use TrackMan.
It's an expensive tool.
Yeah, so now that quarterbacks can use them, it'd be a lot easier to get it on the bond referendum.
There you go.
Hey, we need a TrackMan, but
And the velocity. It's pretty cool. Spin rate.
Yeah. I think it measures velocity, spin rate, probably like ball flight angles. I know they've been using them in baseball for a while for pitchers.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's trying to throw 1,000 miles an hour. See those on Twitter all the time. Hey man, let's throw it 100.4 miles an hour.
Just throw it.
Man, what are we doing?
Make sure we throw a strike first of all.
Yeah, dude. How about
Who was the pitcher for the Braves that couldn't throw hard? He's like the greatest pitcher.
Yeah, Maddox, man.
Yeah, Greg Maddox.
Yeah, the guy threw like 87. I don't know, man. What do we know? All right. Well, that seems like a good way to wrap up a really good episode. Coach, we really appreciate you being on, man. It was awesome catching up. Well, I'm sure we'll do it again soon. We're definitely going to have you back on, hopefully in the near future if you're interested in talking more ball. But it was awesome. Good episode. Dustin, man, take us home.
Yeah, man. Guys, don't forget show notes. We have a team builder link, free 30-day trial. Nothing to lose, everything to gain. 30-day trial promo code using CoachSpeak. Also have our Pro Quick Draw, a 7-day free trial link as well. And don't forget to check out Ray Crowther. We will put it in the show notes as well, the website, but we're also going to have the link straight to the X-Ray sled. Definitely should check it out. It's the most realistic sled on the market. And yeah, appreciate y'all. See y'all next time.
See you guys.
See you, fellas.
Thanks for tuning into the CoachSpeak podcast. If you're interested in being a guest speaker on the show, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at coachspeakpodcast1@gmail.com. And if you have a question for our Q&A segment, don't forget to submit it through the form in the episode description. We appreciate your support, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.